You'll never afford a house. You can barely afford rent. 6 years later, 10 million people were about to watch those words collapse. The studio lights blazed over an $8 million mansion. Cameras rolled. A live broadcast. Damian Hayes stood beside his realtor, confident, smiling like a man who believed the night belonged to him. Final offer? The host asked. $8 million, Damian said. Cash. The host paused, glancing at her tablet. Then she smiled. We have another buyer, Damian's smile tightened. Who? 10 million cash. The room shifted. The mansion doors opened. A woman walked in, wearing quiet confidence, keys already in her hand. Damian's breath caught. It was Tiana. The same woman he'd laughed at years earlier, the same woman he'd told would never own a home. Behind her, 3 children ran across the marble floor, voices echoing through the hallways. Mommy, one of them laughed. This house has a pool. 10 million viewers watched as Damian realized this wasn't just a sale, it was a reckoning. 6 years earlier, there was no mansion, no cameras, no polished floors or velvet ropes. There was only a narrow apartment in East Atlanta, with peeling paint and a heater that barely worked. Tiana Williams stood in the doorway, clutching a few printed pages she'd pulled from the public library that afternoon. The pages were wrinkled from being folded and unfolded on the bus ride over. Across the room, Damian Hayes was stretched out on the couch, game controller in his hands, eyes locked on the flashing screen of his giant television. Tiana, he said without looking away. Hold on, I'm about to finish this round. She waited. 1 minute passed, then 5, then 10. Her fingers tightened around the pages. Finally, Damian paused the game and sighed. What? She stepped closer, her voice careful. I found some houses today. They're small, but they're affordable. If I keep saving... Damian glanced at the pages and laughed before he even read them. You? A house? He scoffed. You can barely cover rent. Tiana swallowed. I've been saving $50 every month. I've got over 1,000 now. In 5 years I could... Damian waved her off like she was a child explaining a fantasy. Tiana, you clean offices at night and pour coffee in the morning. Be realistic. The words cut deeper than he knew. She stood there, embarrassed, holding proof of her dreams, while the man she loved shredded them without even trying. I just wanted you to see, she said quietly. I see, Damian replied, unpausing his game. And I see someone wasting her time. That night, Tiana didn't argue. She didn't cry in front of him, but something cracked inside her. While Damian slept, she packed everything she owned into 2 trash bags, her clothes, her shoes, and a small shoebox filled with every dollar she'd saved. By sunrise, she was gone. No note, no goodbye. Only a woman who refused to let someone else decide her worth. And what Damian never knew was that in walking out that morning, Tiana had just taken the first step toward destroying everything he thought he was. But Tiana didn't just leave Damian. She was about to discover a secret that would change everything, and force her to fight harder than she ever imagined. 2 weeks after leaving Damian's apartment, Tiana collapsed in the bathroom at work. The world tilted, her stomach twisted, cold sweat drenched her back. The manager at the diner thought it was exhaustion. Sit down, honey. You work too much, he said. But Tiana knew something was wrong. After her shift, she walked 3 blocks to a pharmacy and bought the cheapest pregnancy test on the shelf. $12 she could barely spare. She took it in the diner bathroom, hands shaking. 2 lines. Her knees gave out. The next morning, she went to a free clinic. The doctor frowned at the screen longer than expected. Tiana, she said carefully. You're not carrying 1 baby. Tiana held her breath. 3, you're having triplets. The word didn't feel real. 3. Tiana sat in her car afterward, staring at the steering wheel while tears rolled down her face. She was 24, alone, barely surviving, and now responsible for 3 lives. She almost called Damian. Her finger hovered over his name, but she remembered his laugh, his voice. You'll never afford a house. She deleted his number. Instead, she pressed her palm to her stomach. I don't know how, she whispered, but I will not fail you." That same night, Tiana made a decision. She couldn't stay in Atlanta. Too many memories, too much humiliation. She sold what little she owned, packed her car, and drove west with nothing but clothes, savings, and 3 tiny heartbeats inside her. By sunrise, she was on the highway, running from the past, chasing something she couldn't even name yet. Tiana didn't know where she was going, but in one small Texas city, fate was waiting to collide with her in the most unexpected way. Austin, Texas was loud, bright, and completely unfamiliar. Tiana arrived with $800, a growing belly, and nowhere to sleep. She spent her first night in her car, parked behind a grocery store, too exhausted to cry. The next morning, she found the cheapest apartment she could afford, a tiny 1-bedroom owned by an older man who took pity on a pregnant woman alone. It wasn't much, but the heater worked, and it was hers. She found a diner job, then a small cleaning gig at night. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept the lights on. By her 6th month, her belly was so large people stared. 3 babies stretched her body thin, leaving her breathless climbing stairs. One afternoon, she nearly collapsed carrying groceries. A gentle voice stopped her. "You need help." An older Asian woman took one of the bags without waiting for permission. "I'm Susan," she said. "You live alone?" Tiana nodded. Susan invited her over for soup the next day, then the next, then the next. When Tiana finally told her about the triplets, Susan didn't flinch. "I will help you," she said simply, and when the babies arrived weeks early, Susan drove her to the hospital at 3 in the morning, held her hand through labor, and stood beside her when 3 tiny cries filled the room. Marcus, Julian, Zoe, 3 miracles. The nights that followed nearly broke Tiana. No sleep, 3 mouths, 3 sets of diapers, 3 cries at once. But every morning, Susan knocked at her door. "Go work," she'd say. "I've got the babies." Tiana had never had anyone like her, and while the world still looked impossible, for the first time, she wasn't alone, but survival wasn't enough anymore, because one desperate night, Tiana was about to make a decision that would change her destiny forever. 2 months after bringing the babies home, Tiana hit her breaking point. It was 2:14 in the morning. Marcus was crying, Julian was screaming, Zoe had joined in. Tiana stood in the middle of her tiny kitchen, rocking one baby, while the other 2 wailed in their cribs. Her arms were shaking, her eyes burned. She hadn't slept more than 2 hours in days. "I can't do this," she whispered. For the first time since leaving Atlanta, she picked up her phone and opened her contacts. Damian Hayes. His name glowed on the screen. If she called him, everything could change. He had money, he could help. The babies wouldn't have to struggle. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then she remembered the way he laughed at her dreams, the way he made her feel small. Tiana turned the phone face down. Instead, she opened an old, barely working laptop she'd bought years ago. While the babies cried themselves back to sleep, she searched for free courses online. Learn coding. Free programming classes, how to build software. She didn't know what she was doing. But she knew this. Waiting tables would never give her 3 children the future they deserved. That night, while the world slept, Tiana began teaching herself how to build something out of nothing. And she didn't stop. What Tiana didn't realize yet was that her exhaustion had just planted the seed of $1 million idea. Weeks turned into months. Every night, after feeding the babies, Tiana sat at her kitchen table with her laptop and notebook. She learned words she'd never heard before. Code, scripts, programs. Most of the time, nothing worked. But sometimes, just sometimes, it did. And one day at the diner, something clicked. 2 waitresses were arguing over a schedule. Orders were mixed up. The kitchen was angry. Customers were waiting. Tiana saw the chaos and thought, there has to be a better way. That night, she sketched out an idea. A simple program, one that let restaurants manage schedules, orders, and inventory all in one place. She built it in silence while her children slept beside her. Weeks passed, then months. Her fingers learned to fly across the keyboard. By the time the triplets turned 1, she had something real. She called it Quick Serve. She showed it to her boss. "It's free," she said. "Just try it." The first night they used it, orders stopped getting lost. Schedules stopped changing. Everyone was calmer. By the end of the week, the other servers were begging to keep it. Within 3 months, other restaurants started signing up. Money started appearing in her account. Small at first, then not so small. And for the first time in her life, Tiana wasn't just surviving. She was building something. But just when Tiana thought she had escaped her past, the man who broke her was about to walk straight back into her story. 3 years after Quick Serve went live, Tiana barely recognized her own life. Her mornings no longer began with panic. They began with 3 lunchboxes on the counter, 3 small voices arguing about cereal, and sunlight pouring into a home she owned. Her children were in preschool now. Marcus loved building things. Julian never stopped talking. Zoe sang to herself while tying her shoes, and while they were gone, Tiana worked. From home. On a laptop that once felt impossible to understand. Now it ran a company used by restaurants across the country, small cafes in Oregon, busy diners in Chicago, family-owned grills in Texas. All powered by software she built late at night while her babies slept beside her. She no longer counted dollars, she counted clients. But she never forgot where she started. One quiet Tuesday morning, as she finished answering support emails, a new message appeared. Subject: acquisition offer. Her heart skipped. A tech firm in California had been watching QuickServe for months. They wanted to buy it. Their first number made her dizzy. $4 million. For a moment, Tiana couldn't breathe. $4 million was more money than she had ever imagined touching in her entire life. It could buy homes, security, freedom. But something in her paused. She didn't accept. She learned how deals were made. She spoke to lawyers. She studied contracts. She waited, and she held her ground. 2 weeks later, the email came back, $12 million. When the wire finally hit her account, Tiana sank onto the living room floor as if her legs had given out. Tears streamed down her face, not because she was rich, but because she was finally free, free from fear, free from being small, free from anyone ever telling her what she was worth again. And with that freedom, Tiana was about to make a move no one would ever forget. One night, scrolling through her phone, Tiana saw a familiar face. Damien, still confident, still flashy. Then she saw it. A photo of him standing in front of a massive white mansion. Caption: biggest purchase of my life. It was the same house featured on a luxury reality show. Tiana stared at the screen. He was buying the very thing he once told her she'd never own. She closed the app, then opened her laptop. By morning, she had booked a flight to California, because Damien was about to learn what those 6 years had really created. And when Damien stepped onto that live TV stage, he had no idea who was about to take everything from him. Beverly Hills didn't feel real. The palm trees, the spotless streets, the way every building looked like it belonged in a movie. Tiana stood inside a glass-walled office across from Rebecca Foster, one of the top real estate agents in the city. "I want that house," Tiana said calmly. Rebecca hesitated. "The mansion on Luxury Estates Live? It already has a buyer. Damien Hayes. He's scheduled to close tomorrow. Cameras will be there." Tiana didn't blink. "How much would it take to beat his offer?" Rebecca exhaled slowly. "The sellers want speed and certainty. If you came in with all cash, $10 million. No inspections. I'll do it." Rebecca stared at her. "Are you serious?" Tiana slid her phone across the desk, showing proof of funds. The numbers made Rebecca go silent. By that evening, lawyers were involved. The sellers didn't hesitate. They took Tiana's offer. And just like that, the house was hers. Tiana held the keys that night, her hands steady. Tomorrow, Damien would arrive on live television to buy a home he no longer owned. And he had no idea. But the real shock wasn't losing the house. It was about to be who took it. The cameras were already live when Damien Hayes stepped out of his silver BMW. The sun bounced off the polished hood. His tailored suit fit perfectly. He smiled the kind of smile that said, "I've made it." The host stood beside him, microphone in hand. "Damien, you've worked for years to get here. Are you ready to make your final offer? He nodded confidently. $8 million, cash. Behind the cameras, crew members nodded. This was supposed to be the highlight of the season. The host glanced down at her tablet. Her smile shifted. We have an update. Damien frowned. What kind of update? There's been another offer submitted, he laughed lightly. That's fine, they can't beat mine. The host swallowed. 10 million, all cash. The air changed. Damien's smile slowly faded. 10 million, he repeated. Who would do that? The host turned toward the massive glass doors of the mansion. The new owner is here. The doors opened. Everyone went quiet. A woman stepped inside, calm and poised, holding a set of keys in her hand. Her cream-colored suit was simple but powerful. She didn't look rushed. She didn't look nervous. She looked like she belonged. Damien squinted, then froze. Tiana? The name barely escaped his lips. 6 years ago, she had stood in a cold apartment holding printed house listings. Now, she stood in the doorway of a Beverly Hills mansion. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just looked at him. Behind her, 3 children ran inside, laughing as their sneakers tapped against the marble floors. "Mommy, look!" one of the boys yelled. "There's a pool!" Another laughed. "This house is huge!" Damien watched them run past him. Something about their faces felt familiar. Too familiar, the shape of their eyes, the curl in their hair, the way the little girl tilted her head when she laughed. His heart started pounding. No, it couldn't be. But deep down, he already knew. Because in the next moment, Damien was about to learn a truth that would shatter everything he thought he knew. Damien couldn't take his eyes off the children. They were everywhere, running, laughing, touching the expensive furniture like it was a playground. But all he could see were their faces. The boy on the left had his jaw, the other boy had his eyes, and the little girl had his smile. He turned slowly toward Tiana. "Those kids," his voice cracked. "They're yours?" Tiana nodded once. "Yes." His heart pounded in his ears. "And the father?" he asked, though he already felt the answer clawing its way into his chest. Tiana held his gaze. "You." The cameras caught everything, the color draining from his face, the way his lips parted in shock. "That's not possible," he whispered. "You would have told me." "I tried," she said calmly. "You were too busy telling me I'd never afford a house." A murmur swept through the crew. Damien staggered back a step. "I could have helped," he said. "I had money. I could have—" "You had words," Tiana cut in, "and they were cruel." She walked past him and knelt beside the children. "This is your home now," she told them gently. Damien looked around at the mansion, the very thing he thought would prove his worth, and it was hers. But Damien wasn't finished yet, because losing the house was nothing compared to what he was about to lose next. Later that night, the cameras were gone, but the damage was done. Damien stood alone in the driveway while Tiana and the children explored their new home inside. He had lost the mansion, but worse, he had lost a family he never knew he had. He walked up to the front door. "Tiana," he said softly. "Please. I didn't know. Give me a chance." She opened the door but didn't step aside. "You had a chance," she said. 6 years ago. "I was young. I was stupid." "So was I," she replied. "The difference is I didn't give up." He looked past her at the children. "I want to be part of their lives." Tiana studied him for a long moment. "That depends on them, not you." She closed the door gently. Damien stood there, staring at the reflection of a man who finally understood the cost of his words. And the final twist was about to prove that sometimes the richest victory isn't money at all. The first morning in the mansion was quiet. Sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, painting the marble floors gold. Outside, palm trees swayed in the warm California breeze. Inside, 3 small pairs of feet padded across the halls, discovering a world they never imagined. "Mommy, there's a room just for toys," Julian shouted. "And this one has a balcony," Marcus called from down the hallway. Zoe stood in the center of the living room, spinning slowly. "We live here now?" Tiana knelt and pulled all 3 of them close. Yes, she said softly. This is our home. Not a house Damien bought, not a dream someone else handed her. A home she built with sleepless nights, shaking hands, and a heart that refused to give up. Later that day, Tiana stood by the massive glass doors, looking out at the city. 6 years earlier, she had walked away from a man who told her she would never amount to anything. Now she owned more than he ever dreamed of. But what mattered most wasn't the mansion. It was the 3 lives playing behind her, safe and loved. Across town, Damien sat in a hotel room, staring at a phone that wouldn't ring. No mansion, no celebration, no victory, just silence. Because for the first time in his life, he understood something money could never fix. You can lose a house, but you can lose people forever. Sometimes the words we speak in anger don't just hurt, they shape destinies. Tiana was never chasing a mansion. She was chasing dignity, security, a future for her children. And in the end, she didn't just prove Damien wrong. She proved that belief, persistence, and self-respect can turn even the smallest beginnings into something extraordinary. Do you believe people can truly change after hurting someone deeply? Tell us in the comments, should Tiana ever forgive Damien? Or was walking away the real victory? Your story might inspire someone who needs it today. Before you go, don't miss what happens next. In our next story, a black woman risks everything to save a stranger at a train station and discovers he's a billionaire whose gratitude will change her life forever. Click the video on your screen now. Black woman missed her train to help an old man, but her act of kindness changed her life forever. You won't believe what happens after he opens his eyes.